Hello, I'm Wendy DeRosa, the founder of the School of Intuitive Studies. This video is on the concept, it's sometimes questions, around fighting for truth. Is fighting for truth perpetuating violence? So this question comes up often, and I'll explain it a little bit in spiritual communities. I see it often commented in comments to somebody who might say, I'm going to, we're going to fight for justice or fight for what's right or continue the fight of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. These, and then are, people commenting and saying, well, aren't you perpetuating violence? Or you speak against, you speak for peace and love, and now you're saying this, So first of all, I want to be clear about something. So when we're talking about spirituality ultimately is the path of coming into the deep center of truth in your body. For thousands and thousands of years, that has been documented in early aspects of spiritual teachings, in the Vedas, in early scriptures, that the center of our being, where we commune ultimately with God, is a nonverbal place. And in yoga philosophy, it's going into the central channel. And that in the central channel of our being, nothing, ultimately when we go into the deep essence there, through contemplation, through prayer, through mantra, through deep meditation, that we come to a place in our being where the connection with God and the divine is unspeakable, which is very contradictory to the preaching aspect of spirituality. That this is what it should be, this is what God is, this is how God, he thinks about us, when God is a infinite consciousness that lives in us, around us, and doesn't have a gender. And when we're in this pursuit of spirituality, the pathway is in to the deeper state of being. But what's going on right now in the world right now is that it's as if the planet is shaking us up. It's incredibly traumatizing. People are traumatized right now. And from traumatized states, we look for anchors, we look for attachments, we look for safety. And sometimes that safety is outside of ourselves. It's not necessarily rooted and grounded inside of us because we're having a traumatic response in our body to our own personal experiences being triggered by what's going on in the collective. And so people seek spirituality to align to values and ideas and ideology and dogma that's going to give someone a feeling of attachment and belonging. And sometimes, depending on the teaching, sometimes there is a skew that occurs in that dynamic, in that the teaching might be coming from preaching or might be coming from ideology that hasn't quite made it into the central channel, hasn't quite made it into the contemplative, deep state of what happens when we really get to the spiritual center. And so we're commingling in our body with our traumas and with our soul, looking for peace, looking for alignment, looking for a way to feel safe. I can't tell you how many times I have seen people seeking out spirituality for a sense of belonging and safety within a group mentality that takes people out of their center. I've seen it over and over and over again in the 27 years I've been an intuitive healer and beyond. True spiritual connection brings us back into our center and our alignment and our truth in our body. And we do that, we get there by getting off the computer. We get there by not immersing our whole life into social media groups that are sort of, spewing a lot of different things that may be in alignment with you, but also may be very twisted and confusing, and recognize your body response. We are perpetually shocked, shocked and shocked and shocked and shocked, and that's trauma and trauma and trauma and trauma. And without repair between the shocking things that are experiencing, we are losing our center. You do lose connection to that deeper state of communion between yourself, your soul, and God, and the divine. So that's truth. That's the aspect, the deeper aspect of spirituality. And I could preach to you also. And what I'd say is that you have a right to have discernment and discretion and peace and space in your being to go into that internal state, to feel truth in yourself. Otherwise, you're in codependent relationships with other people that are going to give you a sense of belonging. And it's not necessarily your own deeper dropping in. When we drop in, guess what? We're going to feel the trauma. We're going to feel the shakiness. We're scared of that, but do it anyway. Drop in, breathe, feel it. Okay. The point of this video is that spirituality does not need to be love and light. It's not that I need to be, in pervasive peace and meditating on a cushion and disregarding the truth in the being, in the center of the being. When we come into truth, we come into power. We come into advocacy. We come into right alignment with what is okay and what's not okay for us in the world. I have a wardrobe, and if you are someone who identifies as feminine or as a female, think about this. Think about your wardrobe. Do you own a pair of pants? I own a pair of pants. I'm wearing a pair of pants. I have lots of pairs of pants. Do you have a job as a woman? I have a job. Many women I know have jobs. Even if you're a mother, you may have a job. You're probably the matriarch of your household. The reason I can wear pants and go to work, and the reason you can wear pants and go to work, is because women fought for us. I can show up at an election and vote because women before have fought for that right for us to have what we have now. The white men at the time who were in charge didn't just wake up someday and say, I think it's okay that, we'd like to change this law. That didn't happen. We know that historically. Women marched. Women spoke up. The wives of political leaders did something because they knew they had rights too, and they fought for it. And so there is a difference between acting out of trauma and traumatizing other people to instill senseless violence versus advocating for truth. If there are people out there advocating for truth, and you're seeing words like, we're going to fight for our rights, we're going to fight for what we believe is true, they aren't perpetuating violence. And yes, there will be protests. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the protests need to be violent, but we have incredibly oppressed, culturally, racially, we have oppressed people in our society. And that is gender, that is race, that is across the board. And to allow unsuppression, to allow a rise up, to allow equality, there has to be a pushback. We can't let it all be nice, good girl. I'm a good girl, I'm a good Christian, I'm going to keep quiet, I'm going to do the right thing, I'm going to align to the patriarchy, I'll follow the men leaders, the male leaders, they seem to know what's going on. So it comes from the rise up, it comes from the advocacy, and people who have been deeply suppressed do have a fight in them, and it's a noble fight, and it's not for nothing. It's to help move consciousness forward. It's a movement. It's to create a movement against or to counter what has been oppression, what has been deeply inherent oppression, so inherent that you don't even know that you embody it. I didn't know I embodied it until I took a really hard look at my history of growing up in America, looking at the story of our founding fathers, how it all formed, understanding the story of my immigrant grandparents. So we fight because there is alignment of truth. We fight because there is equality, because there is love at the deeper core of our being that wants to be seen, that wants to fight for truth, that wants to fight for connection, for equality, for justice, for good. At the heart of our core as spiritual beings, we all want the same thing. The question is, how much are you losing yourself, immersed in the online mess? How much are you becoming aligned? Do you need to feel I need to align to this mentality, to this dogma, to this spiritual doctrine, because it gives me a sense of belonging? What would happen if you sat with yourself and God in the center of your being and had that deeper essence conversation? Can't go in through the mind. It's not going to get you there. The mind will just repeat what you've heard, what you've been programmed to believe. And you have to go into the heart and into the center of your being to find that place, that deep place. There's no identity, just this dwelling state between yourself, your soul, your body, and the light. It takes a while to get there. And when you get there, it's medicine, it's healing. So I leave you with that. And I hope this video supported you with any struggle around this concept. Many blessings. You can always visit my website, schoolofintuitivestudies.com. Blessings.